races. You'll be getting details coming up in 5 minutes with WUSF 89.7 News. Then right after that, it's Florida Matters Live and Local.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from New South Windows, offering impact-resistant windows that help protect against hurricanes and break-ins. Engineered for strength, designed for peace of mind. Learn more at newsouthwindow.com. Kimberly Akimbo is the new Tony Award-winning musical about growing up and growing old, in no particular order. It's coming to the Straz Center in Tampa, November 18th through 23rd. Tickets and information at strazcenter.org.
Florida has a shortage of workers helping people with mental and substance abuse issues. A new tool is tracking where the shortages hit the hardest. I'm Matthew Petty, and today on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about what happens to a community when there is no access to mental health care workers. And bicyclist deaths are up in Tampa Bay. If you ride regularly, how do you stay safe? And later, have you noticed the springs and other waterways around Tampa looking a little murkier? We'll talk to a local journalist about their deep dive into what's polluting the waters. Call us up and let's talk about it. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can send us an email to FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. All this and your calls on Florida Matters Live and Local. First, these headlines.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani will be the next mayor of New York City. NPR's Brian Mann says Mamdani defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa.
A year ago, Mamdani, who will be New York's first Muslim mayor, was relatively unknown, and Cuomo was a political titan. But last night, it was Mamdani declaring victory.
The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty.
Cuomo was hobbled in this race by sexual harassment scandals that drove him from office in 2021. In his concession, Cuomo voiced anger at Mamdani's embrace of socialism.
We support an economy of jobs, of opportunity, of entrepreneurship.
But many of Mamdani's supporters say his victory was a sign voters want a new, more hopeful politics. Brian Mann, NPR News, New York.
Cuomo was endorsed by President Trump, who threatened to withhold some federal funding to New York City if Mamdani won. First responders are searching for more possible victims at the site of yesterday's UPS cargo plane crash at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. Governor Andy Beshear says at least 9 people have died.
But I'm now fairly confident that that number will grow by at least 1. We hope it doesn't grow by too many more. I believe by this afternoon we'll have a pretty good grasp of both the number of fatalities and, if there are any, the number of missing persons that we're still looking for.
Authorities say at least 11 people were injured. Video showed flames on the plane's left wing and a trail of smoke. The aircraft crashed as it was departing for Honolulu. Today, the Supreme Court hears arguments in a case testing whether President Trump may, acting on his own, impose tariffs under a federal law that does not specify that it covers tariffs or duties on imported goods. NPR's Nina Totenberg reports the president is relying on what he calls his emergency powers.
The Supreme Court's conservative supermajority has in the past been receptive to Trump's claims of presidential authority, but most of those Trump victories came in cases involving the so-called emergency docket, allowing Trump policies to take effect on a temporary basis while the litigation played out in the lower courts. The tariff cases are the real thing, with the court having ordered full briefing and expedited arguments. On its face, Trump's opponents have a strong case, but the court is often reluctant to second-guess presidential determinations on questions of national security. Nina Totenberg, NPR News, Washington.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Dow up 193 points. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from BetterHelp, committed to making mental well-being a priority and offering support in taking on everything life demands, with therapists available to communicate via video, chat, or phone. at betterhelp.com/public.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. Voters in Lakeland have narrowly decided who will be the city's next mayor, with all precincts reporting. City Commissioner Sarah Roberts McCarley won with just over 50% of the vote. She will become Lakeland's first elected female mayor. Cedric Valerie was second with 19% of the vote, followed by Kay Klimko with 17% and Caitlin Gracie Kramer with 13%. Elections were also held for City Commission in Lakeland, Auburndale, and Witter Haven in Polk County, Holmes Beach in Manatee County, and for Mayor of Seminole. You can see complete election results on our website, WUSF.org. Florida voters will be choosing a new governor this time next year. The Democratic field is getting more crowded. Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings filed paperwork to run this week, and he's scheduled to make an official announcement tomorrow. He will join former Pinellas County Representative David Jolly in the Democratic contest.
I welcome Jerry to the race, but it does not change the task before me.
Jolly served 2 terms in Congress as a Republican before becoming an independent. He registered as a Democrat last spring. Florida Democratic state lawmakers have asked Governor Ron DeSantis to declare a state of emergency due to the federal government shutdown and its impact on food subsidies. That's a request Jolly supports.
I do. I think my Democratic colleagues in Tallahassee are doing the right thing.
You can hear a full interview with David Jolly on the Florida Roundup Friday at noon. If you retired to Florida, you've got a lot of company. Florida had 16 cities in the top 50 of U.S. News and World Report's top 250 retirement sites. Homosassa Springs and Spring Hill placed highest at 3rd and 7th, respectively. Midland, Michigan, and Wharton, West Virginia topped the list. Last year's number 1, Naples, fell all the way to 18th. You can find out why and see how U.S. News and World Report came up with these rankings at WUSF.org. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
On the Bay Blend podcast, we highlight things to do in the Tampa Bay area you might not even know about, like when I went to Rustic Steel Academy to try my talents at welding.
Do you think I have a future as a welder if I wanted to change career paths?
I think I would not quit your day job yet.
Well, at least he was honest. On the Bay Blend podcast, we give you the news and some fun in your own community. That's the Bay Blend from WUSF, wherever you listen to your podcasts or online at WUSF.org.
This is Florida Matters, live and local, broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, if you have mental, emotional, and substance abuse problems, it's hard to find treatment in Florida, and that news is probably not a surprise to anyone trying to provide a provider for any health care, but there's a new tool where you can see where the behavioral health shortages hit the hardest. It's thanks to an interactive dashboard created by a unit at the University of South Florida. And today we're joined by Courtney Witt. She's the Executive Director of the Florida Center for Behavioral Health Workforce. Dr. Witt, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me and for doing this important conversation.
Indeed. Also with us, Mandy Robbins, HR Generalist at the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. Mandy, thank you as well.
Thank you.
And if you're feeling the effects of the lack of clinical psychologists or mental health workers, let us know. We're curious to see if your experience matches the data. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Okay, so the dashboard is pretty interesting because you can kind of see, where the gaps are. Where did you find the biggest gaps are in the Tampa Bay region for clinical psychologists and the like?
So there's gaps across the state, and I should say that there's gaps across the U.S. This is not unique to Florida, but there has been a significant increase in demand for services, and there's been significant population growth. So to add that on top of an existing shortage, definitely has taxed the system. We have seen across licensed behavioral health professionals a really great increase over time over the last several years. The difficulty is that it just still doesn't come anywhere close to meeting the projected demand over the next 10 years.
Right, and it's quite a big range of professions, right? So are you seeing a bigger need in some areas like counselors, psychologists?
Absolutely. I think the most alarming trend is for psychiatrists, and that's here in Hillsborough, where there's some really great training and residencies, and people tend to stay in those populated kind of metro areas. But we're still struggling. So we have seen a decline over the last 8 years of psychiatrists across the state.
Do you know why?
Well, I think it's multifactorial. One, it takes a very, very long time to become a psychiatrist. There's other pathways where people can, achieve similar ends. So thinking about psychiatric physician assistants or psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners. But it's also, I think, a lot to do with just the investment and the cost of education, and also just for some of the pay and reimbursement relative to the demands, of the work. They can be quite taxing in terms of...
just getting a medical degree and becoming a doctor is a lot of time and money, as you say. Mandy, what about the gap as far as the crisis center of Tampa Bay? Like, what does it mean for you? What are you seeing?
We struggle a lot with finding staff. It is one of those things where you have to have a heart to work in this field, and burnout is something that we deal with often, something that we really work closely with our employees with to make sure that they're have support and are combating them, but also it's just finding people that are qualified and can fill the positions that we have open.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about the lack of mental health professionals in the Tampa Bay region and across Florida. I want to hear your perspective too. If you're looking for a clinical psychologist or some other kind of mental health care worker, let us know. Curious to see if your experience matches the data. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. So do you feel like, and we're kind of in a unique moment right now too, because we have a federal government shutdown. Is that driving demand for crisis center services?
There has been a demand for it, yes. We have been partnering with the United Way and with the airport. We have a really good working relationship with them. We have a volunteer booth there, so we have a great relationship with the airport. And that we've been working hard to help support the federal employees that are just don't have any income.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. That must be terrible.
And is that something that you've noticed too? I mean, is cost a big barrier with or without a shutdown and lack of pay?
Cost in terms of accessing services, for instance, or just stressors? I guess the answer is both, right? Yes.
Right, yeah.
That definitely contributes to the increased need for mental health concerns, and cost can absolutely be prohibitive. But even for individuals that have insurance, they still have a hard time accessing just due to extended waits. Also because of the need, and there's absolutely still stigma. It will remain, but people have, I think, just increased receptivity to reaching out for services. But there are challenges in terms of already needing to have a clinically significant diagnosis to be able to access those services. So for individuals with like kind of percolating risks and things that are really starting to kind of rock their world and throw them off, they're not always able to access those services if they don't already have a diagnosis. So it's not covered.
Percolating risks. I haven't heard that expression before. What do you mean?
I might have just made it up. Well, just thinking about increased financial stressors, thinking about kind of adverse childhood experiences, significant loss, aging parents, just everyday real life that just kind of aggregates and stacks up.
Right.
Yeah, under the right conditions, any of us can be, vulnerable to a mental health or substance use concern.
Mm-hmm. So how does the dashboard make a difference? Like, is this a way for people to sort of check out where there may be better access, like a county over or something?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be used for that. And we wanted to design it so that it's, accessible to meet all the ends. We've had individuals in classrooms and thinking about their career trajectories and looking at kind of opportunities and what the trends suggest might be great opportunities or there might be gaps for them. We have professional associations checking it out, seeing how they can use it to have conversations with policymakers and kind of advocate for making some changes that'll create opportunities for access. And then absolutely to hold us accountable. People are trying, and I know the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay does a ton, so being able to measure impact and see how we're doing in terms of moving the needle for access.
What does that look like in terms of moving the needle? I mean, do you feel like the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay is keeping up, or are you getting swamped by the demand?
I think it's always a balance of pivoting. Like that was kind of our big catchphrase during COVID is just pivot. What does this look like? We do a really good job of looking at what's happening in our community and then meeting a need. Is it always right on top of it, and can we forecast it? Not necessarily. But are we there always 24/7 for support? Absolutely. So it might not look perfect, but we're going to do the best we can to address something in the moment when it's happening.
So we're talking about the need for clinical psychologists, other mental health workers in the Tampa Bay region. Want to hear about your experience too. If you have experience trying to find one of these specialists, give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. I wonder too, I mean, if you think about some of the options available, I hear a lot of ads, I should say, for things like BetterHelp. I mean, is that helping people? I mean, is it a good substitute for in-person care, or can it work for some people better than others?
Yeah, I think it can. I think it's definitely worth trying. I think what you do have to take into account, though, is not everyone has the financial resources to pay for that out of pocket. But if you are struggling and you need support and you feel like that's going to, work for you, I absolutely think it's worth a shot.
Mm-hmm. As well as the dashboard, are you looking at ways to kind of build up the resources in terms of the specialists that are coming into the system to kind of help people who need it?
Absolutely. We're going to be approaching it from every possible angle. To start, we're really trying to engage those that already have an interest and reduce barriers and kind of that might keep them from accomplishing a more kind of a graduate education, or just things that would kind of hold them back or kind of delay their timeline for accessing that. And then really working on strategic community partnerships, mentoring programs, really to help streamline the process from career selection to, actually being in the workplace, but without compromising quality. That's kind of the ultimate thing, because we do have a population and a responsibility to protect the public.
And the population is growing.
It is.
So the need is growing.
It is.
Mandy, what do people do when they can't get reliable or convenient mental health care? I mean, sometimes the options may not be great, right?
Sometimes the options may not be great. They can always call 211 or 988 if they are that elevated and need those support. That's all over the state of Florida. So if you call 211 at any point, you're going to get somebody. If you call Hillsborough County, you're going to get us. And there's always someone there who can talk to you and help give you some support. Other than that, I also would recommend looking at if you're employed and your employer has like an EAP program, you can sometimes get some really good support that way.
And EAP is employee assistance?
Yes.
Right.
So sometimes I remember like when my father passed away, I was looking for grief assistance. There is a lot of things that you can tap into your own network that way. Also look out in your community, check and see if anyone has contacts for you, if there's sliding scales that might not cost as much out of pocket. And lean on your loved ones if you need to.
Yeah. So there is a support network out there. In the last sort of 30 seconds or so, I just wanted to come back to, how are you finding specialists for the crisis center? Like, are you having to reach out of state? Like, how do you go about that?
We have a wonderful pipeline with USF. We have a great one with St. Leo, University of Tampa, Hillsborough College. A lot of our therapists end up coming through us as like an intern, and then maybe they go on to get their registered intern and continue on with us. If not, we have a great pipeline for undergrad here, and we will help people get additional education if they need it, if they want it. So we try to just keep as many people as we can in that great retention.
Mm-hmm. So there's jobs here if people want to stick around, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And there's an opportunity to do a lot within it. So.
Yeah. I want to thank you both for your insights. We've been talking with Mandy Robbins, HR Generalist at the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Courtney Witt, the Executive Director of the Florida Center for Behavioral Health Workforce. And you can find a link to the story, which includes that dashboard on WUSF.org. Courtney, thank you as well.
Thank you so much.
Well, still to come, there's lots of great places to ride a bike around the Tampa Bay region. That's the good news, but the risk to life and limb is up. We'll talk about it next on Florida Matters, live and local. Stay with us.
At WUSF, support comes from the people who listen, like you. Also, Seitenbacher, with a new web shop. Healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com. Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher. The law offices of Porter, Wright, Morris, and Arthur, LLP. Porter Wright is a full-service legal partner dedicated to serving the Tampa business community. Learn more at porterwright.com. Porter Wright, inspired every day.
I'm Scott Tong. Tom Colicchio, chef, restaurateur, and Top Chef judge, wrote the book Think Like a Chef 25 years ago. He lays out his cooking philosophy, which is all about fundamentals.
There's some basic building blocks, and I think that too many people focus on the recipe as a means to an end as opposed to the techniques.
Next time, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. So far this year, 10 people have died in Pinellas County in bicycle crashes, and there have been nearly 700 crashes total. Among the causes, cyclists are running red lights, stop signs, and getting hit by cars. And that's according to the Pinellas County Sheriff. Here's Sergeant Jessica Mackesy in a video posted to the office's YouTube channel, where she says 4 cyclists in the last month have gotten hit running red lights or stop signs.
Physics doesn't care if you've done it 100 times before. A 4,000-pound vehicle versus a bike, there's only one outcome. And looking both ways isn't enough when another driver has the right-of-way and expects you to stop. Stop means stop. On the road, on the trail, every time.
Well, joining us to talk more about bike safety in Pinellas County, here's Kyle Simpson, Active Transportation Planner with Forward Pinellas. It's the county's Metropolitan Planning Office. Kyle, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And if you're a cyclist, what are the biggest risks that you see out on the road? You can give us a call and tell us about it, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. All right, so Kyle, 685 bike crashes, I think, so far this year in Pinellas, 10 deaths. Can you put that in context for us? We did hear from the sheriff's office saying a lot of it is people running red lights and stop signs, but what else is going on?
Yeah, so we usually look at crash data kind of on a rolling average because we do have peaks and valleys throughout the years. So it is looking kind of typical for us, unfortunately. At our agency, Forward Pinellas, we do have a goal of 0 serious injury and fatal crashes for anyone using our transportation system. And that plan is called Safe Streets Pinellas. We're actually actively updating that plan right now.
Yeah, how do you get there? Because, that sounds like you've got a ways to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for improvement. So there's multiple ways. We have adopted the Safe Systems approach, which is with the Federal Department of Transportation as well as the Florida DOT, and that the primary item of that is that people are human and we all make mistakes. And so we need to design a transportation system that allows for someone to make a minor mistake and that mistake not be a serious injury or fatal mistake.
So is that like road design? Are you talking lighting, separate bike lanes, kind of ways to separate the car traffic from the cycle traffic?
So it's all of the above. It's looking at how we design our roads and designing them with the land use context in mind. So if there's apartments on one side of the street and a grocery store on the other side, there should be a way for people to get across that street safely. So speed is another huge factor we see in crash outcomes. And so we're looking at making sure that we have speeds on these roads appropriate for the land use context.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters live and local, we're talking about bike safety in Pinellas County with Kyle Simpson. He's the Active Transportation Planner with Forward Pinellas. And if you've got some experience of maybe things you've seen or experienced on the roadways that aren't so safe, give us a call. I'd like to hear about your experiences. The number is 813-755-6562. If you're a cyclist or a motorist as well, 813-755-6562 is the number. Okay, so if we could just kind of step back a bit and discuss the rules of the road. Is a bike considered the same as a car for road rules purposes?
Yep. So under Florida law, if you're biking in the roadway, you are a motor vehicle. If you're biking on the sidewalk, you're a pedestrian.
Wow.
So it depends on where you're riding.
But if you're on the bike, do you think people are thinking about that? Like, now I'm a pedestrian, now I'm a car?
So basically, the biggest difference is on the sidewalk, on a bike, you have to yield to pedestrians, and then you follow pedestrian signals. If you're in the road, you act like a car, and you follow all of the stop signs and red lights that a car would.
Do you think cyclists are kind of aware of all of that, though? Because I think, maybe if you're on a bike, you may think, I can fit through that gap there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything coming, therefore that red light may not apply to me.
Sure. I mean, there's what we should do, and then there's what people do. I would say there's instances where people walking, driving, or biking make questionable decisions. We work to address or encourage good behavior through design and education for everyone.
Where do electric bikes and scooters fit into all this? Because that has changed the landscape of people on two wheels in the last 5-10 years, right?
Yeah. So in our data, it's hard to parse out electric bike crashes specifically, but we do see that it's increasing. There's also a lot of confusion within the past year. So under Florida law, if a device goes faster than 28 miles an hour with the motor on that device, it's not an electric bicycle. It's basically an unlicensed or an unregistered motor vehicle.
Okay.
So we have a lot of kind of e-mountain bike things now that can go speeds greater than 28, which technically aren't legal.
If you're a cyclist and you've experienced a crash, tell us what happened and what would you have done differently. Share your story by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. All right, so, I mean, I heard you say earlier that you're kind of on par with what the kind of crash data would suggest each year, 685 so far, 10 deaths. Is it going up, though? I mean, is there any kind of trend that you're noticing?
Yeah, so we do look at trends over time. Our overall crashes with all modes has been trending steady or down recently. We did see a blip in 2021, 22 when we had less traffic on the roads because of COVID.
So when you say a blip, it went down?
It went up, actually. Because, which is counterintuitive. We've kind of determined it went up because speeds went up, and speed is the biggest determinant of how serious a crash is.
And you're talking about speed of cars,
yes,
not bikes.
Right. But if a car hits a bike when they're driving at 50 miles an hour versus 30, that's a big difference.
Okay, so how do you get that down? Is that a design thing? Is it education? What do you do?
Yeah, all of the above. So we work short term. We work with our law enforcement partners when we have say we receive citizen comments that there's speeding on a corridor. Our local PD or sheriff will go out and address that. On the engineering side, there's different ways you can design a road to feel like you should drive more in line with what the actual speed limit is.
Mm-hmm. Are you a cyclist?
Yes, I do bike.
Yeah. What do you see out there in terms of safety?
So I think I think overall, if you follow the rules of the road, it's safe to walk and bike within the Tampa Bay region. We're not where we want to be on the safety measure. Like, our goal is 0, and so we're working to get there. But if you follow the rules of the road and you're aware of your surroundings, it is a safe experience.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, what would you advise people to do when they're if they want to bike in the Tampa Bay area and Pinellas County specifically? Like, what are some ways they can do that safely?
Sure. So one thing, if someone's new into cycling, a good way to think about it is don't bike where you would drive. So oftentimes, Fowler might be the road that you drive in, but there might be an alternative route that's more of a local street, not too far away from it, that's a lot more comfortable and feels safer. There's often technically, the bike lane on Fowler is safe, but it might not feel safe. So we're working to build out our network in Pinellas County that not only feels safe, but is safe.
We've been speaking with Kyle Simpson, Active Transportation Planner with Forward Pinellas. It's the county's Metropolitan Planning Office. Kyle, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Well, coming up next, Floridians are proud of their natural springs and waterways, and rightly so, but once crystal clear waters are getting murkier despite laws meant to prevent pollution. So how's the water quality at your favourite spring or river? What needs to happen to clean up those waterways? Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562 and tell us what you're seeing in the water. And stay tuned. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. Much more to come in a moment.
Listener support powers WUSF. Funding also comes from Tech House, celebrating 30 years as a strategic tech partner in the local community, helping small businesses navigate the terrain to stay secure and strong with AI, automation, and cloud security. More information is at tech-house.com. Elements is considered one of the best Earth, Wind, and Fire tribute bands. Join Bog Tower Gardens for a night of greatest hits from over 3 decades, like September and Boogie Wonderland. Live November 15th at 6 p.m. Details at bachtowergardens.org.
On the next Fresh Air, she captivated audiences as the first black woman to become a principal dancer with American Ballet Theater. Now Misty Copeland talks about her final performance, the personal and physical pain she endured through her life and artistry, and how Prince changed her perception of herself. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Do you enjoy taking a dip in a natural spring? Maybe you like to swim at the Seven Sisters Spring or take in a mermaid show at Weeki Wachee State Park. But you might have noticed the water isn't as clean and clear as it used to be. The Tampa Bay Times has been taking a deep dive into why Florida's natural springs and waterways are so murky. And what Bethany Barnes and her colleagues at the Tampa Bay Times have found is disturbing. She joins me now. Hey, Bethany, how's it going?
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Your voice is important as well. Do you have a favorite spring or river? How clean is it? And what do you think needs to happen to keep it clean? Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. And let's talk about it. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. All right, so Bethany, the series is called Wasting Away. In part 2, Protecting Polluters, you focus on big companies that get away with polluting the water. Before we get to those companies, though, which are the waterways around the Tampa Bay region that are suffering from pollution?
Yeah, and so this is kind of a part 2. And so the first part actually focused on kind of a trend test that showed waters around the state are either worsening or not getting better. And we had focused in on the Indian River Lagoon, actually, because that's where we had a manatee die-off.
Over on the East Coast.
Over on the East Coast several years ago. But a striking finding is that we found, 1 in 4 waterways around the state, we're seeing alarming amounts of chemicals, and that includes the tributaries to Old Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, from a layperson's perspective, what does it look like or what does it smell like? Like, does the water smell? Does it look really bad?
Yeah, I mean, it can kind of vary. And one of the things that I think is really important about this issue is it's sort of this insidious, invisible form of pollution until something happens, like a manatee die-off or a red tide event where you're going to be coughing. These waterfront dining areas are going to be impossible to use. But then on a more daily level, if you think about Weeki Wachee, that's famous for these underwater mermaid shows, which exist because the water is so clear, famously clear. But they have a whole routine now where they're picking up this very stringy algae constantly so that underwater theater can exist.
Okay, so they got to clean up the amphitheater or whatever it is where they're doing the show before they can actually run it. Because it wouldn't be too nice to see those mermaids fighting with the muck.
You don't want to see them fighting with it, and it would be kind of dangerous and getting in their mouths. And also, you wouldn't really be able to see them. And so it changes sort of the clarity. It changes the safety of the water. Smell is a huge factor often.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Bethany Barnes with the Tampa Bay Times about their series Wasting Away, which is about pollution in Florida's waterways and springs. I want to hear from you as well. If you have a favorite spring or river, just how clean is it and what do you think needs to happen to keep it clean? The number's 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So, I'm wondering, you mentioned the Hillsborough River, I think, is one of the watersheds under threat. Is that something that's kind of been suffering from some of these challenges like pollution?
As far as like very specific waterways, I don't actually have our data in front of me, so I wouldn't want to speak to that. But there are just many waterways around the state that are either, worsening or they're not improving. And in some cases, those are waterways that the state has spent tons of money on, and you're just not seeing gains. Mm-hmm. It's either, just staying the same or getting worse.
Okay, so coming back to what's causing the pollution, there are some companies that essentially are being allowed to pollute. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so the second story focuses on the state's regulatory framework. So the first story, we're seeing these alarming amounts of chemicals, we're seeing these huge consequences in our waters, but we wanted to know, how does that happen? And so we looked at, decades of Florida's history, because you don't get to this problem in just one day. And so what we found is Florida by design doesn't hold polluters accountable for this type of pollution, which is this kind of non-point nitrogen and phosphorus. The biggest sources of which are from our major industries in the state. That would be development and also agriculture, which have really important roles, right? It's how we have our houses. It's how we get our meals.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the construction, there's like septic tank runoff, there's farm runoff. Can you kind of break down how the pollution actually works?
Yeah. I mean, there's kind of several different parts of these businesses that, do have like this pollution footprint. And so with development, every time it rains, there is pollution that comes. So like you see gathering in these kind of stormwater drains, there's runoff. It picks up things from the street, from all these houses. And so there's kind of this design techniques that we used to help all of that, which on my walk over here, there's all these stormwater ponds that look like amenities on the campus. And those are there to try and treat and clean the pollution that is like running off all the buildings, running off all the street. And then with agriculture, you have farming they use fertilizer, and there are chemicals in that fertilizer. When it rains, there can be leaching and runoff. Also, animals produce waste, same thing.
Yeah, okay. So it's getting into the water and making it kind of dirty. We're talking about waterways and how they're being polluted. You can call us too if you've got a favorite waterway or spring. What are you noticing in the water, and what do you think should be done to keep that waterway clean? The number is 813-755-6562. Let's go to the phones. We've got Vince on the line. Vince, you're on the air.
Hey guys, how are you? It's a great piece there, Bethany. I appreciate it. It's been a good story to watch. And Matt, I appreciate your show this afternoon. Hey, so Mosaic, my interest has mostly been in Charlotte Harbor. I've watched for years how Mosaic and what they have dumped into the Peace River has changed what's going on in the Peace River. The grass, the fish, all those things are changing. And it always occurred to me that it was odd. Why are these polluters not charged per gallon? Aren't they just paying a simple permit to dump for the year? And the other point that I would like to question, if it's even possible, we have all these major industries pulling water out of the springs. Coke, Nestle, these guys pull out millions of gallons of water a day. And I think they also are paying very, very little per year in just a permit. Why do they not have some skin into this game of cleaning up the waters after they're pulling so much out? So, sorry, long question. Sorry, but thank you.
No, Vince, I appreciate that. Thanks for calling in. All right, so a couple of things there. One, how do they pay for what they pollute? And then the other question is like the volume of water that's coming out.
Yeah, as far as the second question, the reporting really isn't focused on water quantity, even though that's a really interesting issue in Florida. There are many people working on that issue. That's not the focus of my reporting, though definitely an interesting issue. And then as far as accountability with the polluters, it is this, system that is designed to benefit the businesses and assume they're doing the right thing. With development, as long as you put in these stormwater ponds and design them in the way the state recommends, they assume they're not harming the water, and no one comes back and tests the water to actually check. With agriculture, if you're in an area where the state has designated the waters that are polluted, you are required to sign up for this best management practices program, which are these farming techniques that the state says will reduce the chemicals in the water. But again, there's not checking the runoff at its source in that system. And the state has also not really done the basic work to validate that many of those methods actually do meet the reductions that we're getting. But in both cases, they come with what's called kind of a presumption of compliance, which means, hey, if you follow these rules, we're going to assume you're doing the right thing. And
so you're saying there isn't really a lot of oversight?
No, and that's kind of intentionally by design.
Let's go to the phones again. We've got Pam calling in. Pam, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hi there. Thank you very much. I'm just wondering why I never hear people mention golf courses as being a major source of pollution. Thank you.
All right, Pam, thanks for that call. Oh, what about that? I mean, is that sort of something that you've been thinking about as well in your reporting? There are a lot of golf courses in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They're a source of pollution. I think they would kind of fall under what we think of as development. I think their state actually does, when they do these best management practices, they come up with a manual and techniques. And I think they maybe actually do have a golf course manual. Actually, I do think the state has thought about that. We did not focus on golf courses specifically, though you're right. They take up a lot of space. They use a lot of water.
Yeah, and I guess there's some runoff from fertilizer and the like too for the grass. Now, your reporting gets into the money that also flows from companies into political campaigns, and that kind of has a flow-on effect on policy too. Can you explain a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, an interesting and tough part of this story in a lot of ways is the sources of pollution are these things that make people want to live in Florida, that people count on. It's development, that's these amazing condos, all these things with our tourism industry that people flock here to see these great cities, these wonderful places to live, waterfront properties, and then, agriculture. Like Florida is a huge player in the country's food supply. It has a very important job, critical role. And so these are very powerful industries in our state. There are many lobbying groups, trade associations that have a vested interest in these policies being lenient.
Mm-hmm. The number is 813-755-6562. We're talking about polluted waterways in Florida, what's being done to protect the waterways or not being done. I want to hear your experiences and perspectives as well. If you have a favorite spring or river, what are you noticing in the water? 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. You mentioned the Indian River Lagoon at the start of our conversation and the manatee die-off. I mean, those kind of events do have a big impact on people, right? People pay attention. Does that have an impact on policy? Does that make lawmakers sit up and say, we need to do something?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you see something like as large as the manatee, it's an animal with no natural predators. It's a very much this shouldn't be happening. And then for people who don't know, what happened is the polluted water killed off seagrass, which is their food source. And so they starved. And so that's kind of where the title of the series comes from. People who were studying this said they looked like they were dissolving from the inside. It's a very slow, painful death. And so you did have lawmakers pay attention to that. We're looking at that. A lot of money has gone into different water projects. DeSantis ran as an environmental candidate. Initially, he's put a lot of funding, which we mentioned in the story, toward water. But
especially the Everglades, right?
Everglades, but also the Indian River Lagoon. Mm-hmm. But experts we talk to say, even with, a landmark law like the Clean Waterways Act, it doesn't change this foundational issue, which is that polluters are not held accountable. And even with millions and millions of dollars going to these important projects, the amount of money needed for restoration is staggering.
Yeah, and what is that act again? The Carillion Waterways Act?
The Clean Waterways Act.
Oh, Clean Waterways Act.
That was a law that passed in 2020. It was a landmark water bill. It was this idea that the legislature was going to say, this has been politically gridlocked, complicated. We're going to really put an effort toward fixing it.
Yeah. Agriculture too. Actually, let's go to the phones again. We've got Jason in Tampa. Jason, you're on the air. What are you thinking?
I just had a question about the FWC spray in all the lakes. I've fished my whole life, and the grass is where all the fish that you go after stay. And since the state has been spraying the lakes, it's killed all the grass, which then doesn't filter all of the chemicals that go out in the Gulf, and it causes the red tide. But it doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything about it.
When you say spraying the lakes, are they spraying for algae or something? What are they spraying for exactly?
They're spraying to kill the grass out of the lakes. And I saw a picture this morning. There were 12 boats in Ocala Lake spraying, and no one seems to know. Everybody, the fishermen really hate it, but the state just keeps spraying these lakes. And the grass, when it kills the grass, it can't filter any of the chemicals, and it runs out into the Gulf out of Okeechobee
right.
On each side of the state and causes these red tides every year.
Jason, thank you for your call. I appreciate that. What about that, Bethany? It sounds like there's kind of some complexity there to what the Fish and Wildlife Corporation is trying to do, Conservation Commission, I should say, is trying to do to, cut down on the grasses there?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a very interesting issue that I don't really know what's going on with spraying the lakes there. It sounds fascinating.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask about agriculture too in the last kind of minute or so we have here. When it comes to agriculture, pasture land is seen as quite an important part of preserving green space in Florida, and as we know, development is really eating up a lot of green space. So is there kind of a balance to be struck between what the agricultural land, kind of keeping some of it, but making sure that the runoff isn't there and polluting the waterways?
Yeah, I think there is a balance in Florida of, how is our land being used? I mean, you will hear that talking point at the legislature of, if we don't give agriculture this, then it will turn into, houses, and that could be even worse. I mean, one of the interesting factors there, though, is you do have a lot of big companies now are what they call diversified land companies. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it is the business of owning land where people will be thinking down the line, I do eventually want to, flip my pasture land and develop on it potentially. That will earn me the most money. So that's a pretty interesting and complex issue.
Yeah, lots to think about there. Well, Bethany Barnes with the Tampa Bay Times, thank you so much for your reporting and thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Well, coming up next, the Shine Mural Festival brings a splash of colour to St. Petersburg's walls every year. This year, the festival is focused on local artists. Do you have a favourite mural? What do you love about the Shine Festival? Call and tell us about it. 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also Tampa General Hospital, the region's only academic health system. Together with USF Health Morsani College of Medicine, TGH delivers groundbreaking innovation and life-saving care. For more information, visit tgh.org. The Billheimer Capitol Theater is proud to present the guitar magic of Al Di Meola. His work with Chick Corea and On Return to Forever is legendary. So is his jazz fusion guitar style. Saturday, January 17th, visit rutheckerdhall.com.
I'm Deborah Becker. We'll wrap up reaction and results from the elections around the country. Also, the Supreme Court meets to hear oral arguments over whether President Trump has the power to impose global tariffs. That ruling could have big implications for the global economy. That's next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
I'm Nancy Guan, a reporter at WUSF. Like you, I'm busy, and I need help staying on top of what's going on. I depend on the Wake Up Call, the daily newsletter from WUSF. It starts your weekdays with a quick early glance at the important news happening in the Tampa Bay region and the world. You get quality reporting from WUSF and NPR journalists, and connections to local artists, events, and more. Sign up is easy. Just visit WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, you know what that sound means? The Shine Mural Festival kicks off on Friday. Artists spend about a week creating murals covering entire sides of buildings in downtown St. Petersburg. This year's festival is a little bit different. It's focusing on local artists, and we want to hear from you. Do you have a favourite mural in St. Petersburg, or you're part of our community? What do you love about the Shine Festival? Call us, 813-755-6562. You can send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. With us in the studio, Helen French, Executive Director of the St. Pete Art Alliance. Helen, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us is Derek Donnelly, a muralist and the operations lead. He's on Instagram at St. Paint Arts. Derek, thank you.
Thank you.
And Sarah Salem, a St. Pete-based muralist and visual artist. Sarah, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I want to start with you, Sarah, and Derek, if I could. How did you get started in the business of murals, Derek?
So about, 2012, I had a small art shop on the corner of the 600 block, legendary art block in St. Petersburg. And we had a good friend and mentor, Bill Wu, who had actually passed away November 26, 2012, complications from a brain surgery they had a couple years prior. The night that he passed away, myself and a couple colleagues and friends started like a tribute mural to him on the side of my old gallery. And that kind of birthed my whole mural career.
Okay, so this was a little more than 10 years ago?
Yeah, this was about 13 years ago.
And was St. Pete kind of known for murals at that time?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
There was only one or two in that whole alley, which is like the original mural alley. But it was starting to, there was a global renaissance going on, and you could definitely feel that coming in St. Pete at that point.
Yeah. Sarah, what about you? What kind of got you started on the mural track?
So I'm originally from Egypt, where I took my fine art bachelor. Then I moved to Dubai, lived there for 8 years. And then one time I was visiting St. Pete, I saw the murals on the walls everywhere. I saw how beautiful the sky is and the creative energy everywhere. And this is where I decided to move here. I opened my business, and my business is called PP Artland. We create murals, community murals. We teach fine arts and martial arts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wow. That's an interesting combo, fine arts and martial arts.
Yes.
Yeah. And how long ago did you move to St. Petersburg?
5 years ago.
Okay. So I understand that you're kind of creating a group mural, right? So tell me what's going on with your mural for the festival this year.
This year for Shine, I'm leading a community mural at LMCU Bank. It's on 4th Street, 22nd and 4th. And the design is going to connect St. Pete and Michigan, since the bank is from Michigan, and through vibrant reflection of pair of sunglasses. Mm-hmm. For the first 3 days of the festival, it's going to be a community mural. So I'm inviting everyone in the community to come and paint with me, to put their brush strokes and be part of the artwork. And I'm so excited to be part of Shine this year.
Yeah. Okay. And what about you, Derek?
I am painting 2 different murals. One is going to be a surprise on the location. The other one, we're going to have about 7 artists along the Pinellas Trail, kind of reactivating a spot along the trail there. And everyone just kind of painting in a big community celebration there. So,
how long do the murals stay up for? Is it like they get painted over every year? Or?
No. So we it is a temporary art form, or I like to call it semi-permanent. It's a little more. It kind of depends. Like we do have an agreement as the Arts Alliance. We have an agreement with building owners to keep them up for at least a year.
Yes,
correct, Helen. And then, but. That looks different. Sometimes there's new businesses that move in 18 months, or so every once in a while things do get painted over. But I don't know. It's never anyone's big goal to do that, right? We want to add to the landscape instead of
Yeah, it must be a little sad if there was a mural under what you're. I'm assuming you kind of prepare the building side before
Absolutely.
You paint it, but still knowing that somebody else had created some art there.
Yeah. Oh, and I've had several over the years that used to be there. And it's just it is a temporary art form.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Helen, you're fairly new to your role.
Yes.
So is how big a part is the kind of the Shine Festival and what are you learning about it as you kind of lean into this year?
Yeah, so I would say Shine is a huge part of what the Arts Alliance does. It's right in line with our mission as far as advocating and supporting artists. It's actually one of 15 things that we do. So, and right now it's very important because it's happening, right? We're in the moment of kicking it off. But I also, just for clarity, have a long-term relationship with the Arts Alliance. So I've seen Shine grow over the last 10 years. I was a former board member. So when I think about Shine, I think about St. Pete and what it's given back to the community and what the community has given to the artists and to the Arts Alliance.
Yeah. What are people going to see if they swing by this week?
Oh, my gosh. There are so many ones I'm excited about. One of the joys of my role is I sometimes get a sneak peek of what might be going up on the walls. And so everything I've seen is exciting and beyond anything I could imagine. I'm a dance artist, so I'm not going to make a mural. But you're going to see some amazing community collaborations like Sarah was alluding to with her LMCU and then what Derek was talking about along the trail. But then we have a beautiful mural going up on the Cordova Hotel, which is going to be just, I think, iconic. Every location is going to have a very specific feel for the artist that is in that space. And I think that's an important thing for visitors to remember is when they're visiting it, you're watching a unique artist with their unique voice in a space in our city. And that's, I think, everywhere you go, you're going to see something different.
Is it different being an artist in this format, Derek, and having people kind of watch you work? Like, are you a kind of... Do you get in your head when you're creating a painting? Do you like having people lean in and comment? How does it work for you?
You know what? After hundreds of murals over the past decade and a half, I really enjoy, the public, working with the public or engaging with folks as they're walking by. But yeah, sometimes there's, those tranquil moments of, just pure creating and, real magic there. But a lot of what I like about it is the fact that I'm out in the community and I'm able to, impact everybody from, the school kids to folks on their way to work. So engaging with everybody has always been a big part of it for me.
Yeah, and Sarah, for you, bringing people in and having them help create the art, like, do you feel like you kind of have to let go of it a little bit? Like, how does that feel, kind of letting that creative control go in some way and having people contribute to it?
So the feeling is very rewarding when you see people's faces happy, putting their brushstrokes and having ownership on the wall itself. And I usually make it kind of like paint by numbers. So I divide it into spaces and I give the paint for each person to paint the small space or a bigger space. And then I do some final touches on top of it. But having the community together, working together and talking about art, it's very rewarding. It makes me happy.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about the Shine Festival, which kicks off on Friday in St. Petersburg. If you have a favourite mural or you're excited about something about this year's Shine Festival, give us a call, 813-755-6562. You can send us an email to FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Helen, do you feel like the Shine Festival and just kind of having more murals in general has elevated this art form? Like, is it thought of differently than what it may have been sort of 10 years ago?
Sure. I think, I was just remarking to someone the other day that we have over 600 murals in the city of St. Petersburg, and 182 of them by my last count were from Shine. And so, Derek talked earlier about how 13 years ago the Woo wall that he did was like, we didn't have 600 murals, right? So I think when we talk about the benefit of public art and murals specifically to the health of our communities, it's elevated the art form, but it's also elevated our communities.
Mm-hmm. How so?
I think when you walk around a city and you see something that resonates with you, as far as like maybe as an image, or you watch someone making artwork, I think your impression changes in that moment. And, I've certainly been lifted having a bad day. I drive down and I'm like, that's one of my favorite murals. I get to take my kid to school and pass it every day. I think that's important. We have those small moments of beauty in our day. And I think that the Shine Mural Festival and all muralists who are contributing to that really do help elevate just our day-to-day well-being.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, I'm wondering, your impressions as somebody who's relatively new to St. Petersburg, you were captivated by the city and you decided to move here. Has it changed over the last 4 years or so that you've been here? And has your participation in the Shine Festival kind of changed how you feel about the city?
So, mainly I moved here because of the murals and because of Shine. And I was so happy that I'm part of it this year. And last year I created the community mural here on Central. And everyone loved it. The community was so happy with it. And that's why I decided to do this year mine as a community mural as well.
How do people get involved if they want to?
They go to my website. They go to PP Artland, to the community mural page 2025, and they find the slots there. It's a free slot. They just need to book so we know who's coming and how many people are joining us.
Mm-hmm. Is this kind of the highlight of your year, Derek? You're busy year round, I'm imagining, but is this kind of what you look forward to each year?
Yeah, especially now. It's a very, very exciting time, mural season in St. Pete. So, and being in the position that I'm in this year and helping, nurture the culture that I love and have lived and breathed for so many years, and help, my colleagues and friends. It's pretty amazing.
It's a good time of year to be out there painting too. I imagine it's
way
quite
better.
Quite tough.
I think the first year of Shine, it was in August. So it's a lot. Yeah, October, November's, way better.
Yeah. Do you worry about your skin?
Oh yeah,
being out in the sun.
Yeah, I cover up. I cover up, like you see these fishermen or these construction workers with long sleeves and hoods, and it's kind of. I was just telling Helen, you kind of almost have to be a meteorologist first and artist second here.
Yeah, because you got to think about how the temperature and the climate's going to affect your artwork too, right?
Everything, rain, sporadic showers, you name it, heat.
Yeah. And Helen, just to kind of close us out here, what are you looking forward to most about this festival?
I'm looking forward to seeing the community come out, but I'm also looking forward to some new collaborations we have. I think public art and murals are an amazing component of our community, but we also have some collaborations with Project Alchemy, which is a dance company, and we're infusing it. So watching the festival grow to incorporate everyone is something I'm really excited about.
Well, Helen French, Executive Director of the St. Pete Art Alliance, thank you so much. Also heard from Derek Donnelly, muralist and operations lead. You can find him on Instagram at St. Pete Arts, and Sarah Salem, St. Pete-based muralist and visual artist. Thank you all for your joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Great.
Thank you for having us.
Well, that's our show for today. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Lily Belcher is our intern. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Garvin. Jackson also composed our theme music, and Malika Hollis handled the video today. I'm Matthew Petty. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon.